if you are someone who happens to seek out the company of paranormal entities, I think it's safe to say there are some places that are just too haunted to even mess with. Welcome back, most amazing crew. I am your host Kennedy, and today we are counting down the top 10 evil places in the Philippines you were warned not to visit. So grab whatever you need to ward off the demons and let's get into it. Starting us off at number 10, the Manila Film Center. Originally built to host the 1982 Manila International Film Festival, this center quickly became an infamous haunted location after a terrifying accident that occurred on November 17, 1981. At the time of construction, the film center had a very strict and short deadline, so the crew was working overtime to finish up the center as quickly as possible. That was until at 3 a.m. the fateful morning, which might I just add is also coincidentally the devil's hour, which is certainly a spooky coincidence. And all of a sudden, the scaffolding on one of the upper floors collapsed, crushing the crew below. Apparently, some of the workers were impaled by the falling steel and others were trapped by the quick-dry cement. But the most evil part is that allegedly Imelda Marcos, who was the first lady and woman heading the project, refused to allow for rescuing of the corpses from inside the building as she didn't want to delay the project any further. Because of this, it's believed the workers' spirits remained as their bodies were buried inside the cement, haunting the building for revenge on their lives. Those that visit today say they can feel a strange presence as soon as they walk through the front door, and then it doesn't take long before the sounds of the wailing workers who were buried alive can be heard coming through the walls. Next up at number 9, General Moncado White House. Said to be one of the oldest houses in the Davao region, it was once the home of mystic and political activist Hilario Moncado, founder of the Filipino Crusaders World Army in the 1940s, and then later in 1946 he ran for president, which pushed the Philippines to be granted Dominion status. Now, back in the day, many of his followers, called Mancadistas, resided in this house. However, nowadays it's regarded as one of the most mysterious and haunted buildings across the Philippines. Investigators often report seeing tons of unnerving things like evil-looking orbs of light and inexplicable sounds at all hours of the day. However, the real fright is said to come from a gaunt lady in white that can be seen late at night, as well as a man in balls and chains who roams around the compound, terrifying all that bear witness to him. So whatever you decide to do, just be careful. You never know what other kinds of horrors could be hiding inside. Coming in at number 8, Maanghit Cave. Named as such due to the high accumulation of guano, which are bat droppings, the first unsettling thing about this cave is said to be the overwhelming smell as soon as you step foot inside. Which, I know, that's not necessarily scary or haunted, but it's also not a very appealing start to this adventure. However, all that being said, if you do decide to venture in, a guide is required to help navigate the complex winding formations. But don't get too comfortable yet, as the guano is the least of your worries. Legend has it that fruit bats aren't the only inhabitants of this spooky cave, and that blood-sucking vampiric creatures lie in the depths and could attack at any moment, which frankly sounds like one of the worst outcomes I could think of. Now, to be fair, this is more of a folklore tale, but still, I'm not really looking to risk my chances in a dark cave that's potentially infested by vampires. I mean, I've seen The Descent, I'm not looking to make that my reality. Coming in at number 7, the old enchanted Balete tree. Located on the island of Siquijor, this mystical tree is estimated to be around 500 years old, and considering how long it's been around, it's no surprise that it's rumored to be one of the most enchanted trees in the world. In Filipino culture, it is believed that all Balete trees are inhabited by mystical beings and other supernatural creatures. However, this one in particular is said to be home to creatures like Duende and Encanto, who, trust me, you really don't want to mess around with. In fact, locals often warn tourists to be extra mindful when visiting the tree, otherwise the spirits inside could become angry angered, and from there you're in a whole world of trouble. The duende are said to cause disease that no modern medicine can cure, while encantos are rumored to inflict deadly disease, mental illness, or even gain complete possession of their human target. All of which sounds like the last thing I want to experience on my holiday. So unless you're looking to potentially get mixed up with some angry spirits, then I would think twice before visiting this historic site. Next up at number 6, Malinta Tunnel. If I've learned anything from horror movies, it's that mysterious and dark tunnels are sure to be filled with creepy ghosts, and the Malinta Tunnel is no different. During World War II, this now historic tunnel was initially used as a bomb-proof headquarters for the US Army. However, it later morphed into a medical unit housing about 1,000 hospital beds for injured soldiers. Now, sadly, many of these soldiers died while being treated here, and it's now believed that they roam around the tunnel haunting the grounds for eternity. Said to be one of the most eerie places on the entire island, those who've dared to see for themselves have reported seeing strange shadows, unidentifiable noises, and sudden shifts in temperature that send a chill down their spine. However, the real scare comes from the sounds of the injured soldiers screaming out in pain that can be heard echoing through the dark at all hours of the day. Coming in at number 5, Laperal House. Built in 1920, the historic Laperal House is said to be one of the most haunted buildings in all of Baguio City. Once the home of the Laperal family, at the height of World War II, terror in the form of Imperial Japanese soldiers overtook the house, taking out the family along with it. It's said during this time, as a garrison, many soldiers and civilians alike were tortured and killed, and many believe that every last one stays haunting its halls today. However, it's not only ghosts from the war that are said to haunt its halls, but a few of the residents who lived there afterwards too. Among them is a girl who is said to have been run over by a car, and her nanny who stares out the window mourning the loss of the little one. Since then, the estate has served a few purposes, most famously as a museum, while nowadays it apparently serves as a restaurant. However, make no mistake, you are sure to see haunted figures roaming around, whether it's the slightly less terrifying young girl and nanny, or the sound of the blood-curdling screams of torture victims, the Laperal House is one terrifying location. Coming in at number 4, Balete Drive. In Quezon City, there is an avenue named after the row of trees that used to line it. Although they are now gone, as I previously mentioned, in Filipino culture it is believed Balete trees are inhabited by mystical beings and other supernatural creatures. And despite their removal from the area, it's rumored to remain just as haunted as the day they were planted. There are a few variations of the legend, but the most popular is that there once was a woman who died after being hit by a taxi along the Balete-lined road late at night, and whoever hit her was never caught. Since then, it's said that she haunts the roads, scaring unsuspecting drivers who dare trespass alone. Some say she might even appear to be lost and wait for a taxi to pull over so she can come inside and terrify the driver by revealing her true form, a corpse covered in blood and bruises. However, others say sometimes she'll just disappear out of thin air. The tale has terrified many, including a police officer and captain of the QCPD who was eventually suspended for cowardice after he refused to patrol the area after a rise in incidents. Allegedly, each accident claimed that a woman in white was what had caused the issue, and so the officer refused. So, all I am saying is, don't say I didn't warn you. Coming in at number 3, Bahay na Pula. A little less than 2 hours outside of Manila is the incredibly terrifying Bahay na Pula. The red house, as it translates to, got its name from the striking blood red hue that exudes it. And while that might not be enough to make it a creepy haunted house, the story that comes with it definitely is. Once upon a time, this house was occupied by Japanese garrison during World War II. But not only that, it also became a very popular site for torturing Filipinos suspected to be a part of the revolution. So needless to say, these walls have seen some dark stuff. And if that weren't enough, hundreds of Filipino women were also brought here to serve as comfort women to the Japanese soldiers, which, if you have not heard about the atrocities committed to comfort women, they were essentially young women forced into slavery for these soldiers' pleasure. With all of that history of torture, it's no wonder that this house is said to be riddled with angry spirits, and some even say that the reason for the color of the house is due to the amount of blood that was spilled inside. Those brave enough to visit have reported hearing the wailing cries of women, screams of pain, and the constant unnerving feeling that they're being watched. So whatever you do, just be careful if you decide to step foot in the Bahay na Pula. Coming in at number 2, the Diplomat Hotel. Hotels are a cornerstone for paranormal activity, and while this one might not be up and running for business, that doesn't mean it's any less haunted. First built in 1913 as the retreat house for the church, it later became a refuge for soldiers during World War II. Now, like many of the haunted places on this list, the Diplomat Hotel also witnessed many atrocities at the hand of the Japanese Imperial Army, who invaded and took over the building, torturing the previous residents, and according to visitors, the paranormal activity is unmatched. Its reputation as a haunted building began in 1973 when the property was purchased by entrepreneur Antonio Agapito Agapoa, who was responsible for turning the war-torn building into a sophisticated and beautiful hotel. However, despite its outward beauty, staff and guests alike quickly realized its dark past remained inside, and would routinely report seeing headless apparitions roaming through the halls or hearing strange and eerie sounds at night. However, the tales were short-lived, as by 1987 Antonio died, and with that the hotel ceased operations and was left abandoned. But make no mistake, while nowadays the abandoned and deteriorating building might not host guests, according to those that have visited, it has no shortage of paranormal activity, with terrifying accounts of people seeing headless apparitions at night, screams, cries, banging on doors, along with countless other strange noises. It is definitely one of the most haunted locations you can find. And last up in our number 1 spot is Mount San Cristobal. Put aside the fact that Mount San Cristobal is a dormant volcano, which is nerve-wracking enough to begin with, it's also been nicknamed the Devil's Mountain due to a series of terrifying folklore tales, which honestly tells you everything you need to know. Legend has it that Mount San Cristobal is home to countless malevolent spirits, as well as an evil creature that locals call the Tumao, which is apparently very similar to a Sasquatch. Some of the haunting tales include the strange disappearances of mountaineers, while the most terrifying claim that the evil spirits that reside within will create false paths, causing the hikers to lose their way so that they could either possess them into falling to their death or use them as human sacrifice. All of which sound like something straight out of a horror movie. So enter at your own risk, cause you just might never return. Well, there you have it, guys. I hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button below and let me know down in the comments the scariest places that you don't want to go to in the Philippines. I'll catch you next time.